Hey, yo, it's Blue, baby, and you're now rocking with Blue Dope. On today's episode, I have Candice Brathwaite, author, influencer, and she's from the UK, y'all, across the pond, as they say. I'm not even going to try an accent. It might be trash if I try. But what's crazy is that she's actually the first Black woman in all of the UK to release a book about motherhood, Black motherhood. It's 2022, y'all, but interesting story. And I just love to hear about what she's doing throughout the UK. And the word is she has her sights on a global landscape. We welcome her into New York. And we look forward to seeing what she does in the future as well. With no further ado, Candice Brathwaite, Blue Dope. What's up, everybody? It's Blue, baby. It's another episode of Blue Dope. Today, I have the dope Candice Brathwaite coming all the way from UK. Author, right? Podcaster, influencer, list goes on and on and on, a Jane of all trades. And I love that. I love whenever people do a lot of things because I feel like I do a lot of things. So, I definitely want to get into it today. So firstly, how are you feeling, Candice?
I'm feeling, today I'm a bit exhausted. I think I've got something. It's not the vid though, because I've been testing like every hour.
Yes,
so
please
today I'm a bit under the weather, but on the whole, I'm really excited about this year for myself and my family, to be fair. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, I'm excited to interview you. I think you're my first international guest. I've kind of been, I guess, state to state, or even people who've migrated to the U.S. that are here, and we have these conversations. But I think with that said, I'm definitely interested in hearing about your upbringing in the UK, and specifically as a Black woman in the UK, and how those experiences may be similar or they differ to Black women in the U.S. So I'm gonna go right into it. So, born and raised in the UK.
Yeah, South London, Brixton, stand up. Brixton, it was before gentrification, super multicultural, very West Indian. And I was raised by my maternal grandparents, so my mum's mum and dad. Wow. My mum and dad split up when I was like 9 months, and my mum went back to work really early. Now, here's the tea, and I think this sets pace for the rest of my life. My granddad was mugged really badly a few months before I was born, and he was left blind in one eye. And so back then, he was deemed unfit for work. So he stayed home, and my nan went out to pay the mortgage. Wow. And my granddad took care of me. So my granddad bathed me, fed me, took me to school. And this is in the 80s.
Yeah.
So do you know what I mean? This is very, very progressive. So now when I'm on TikTok seeing men arguing about washing up, it just gives me an immediate headache, because I'm like, I was raised by a guy who took pride in doing the ironing because he could no longer go out to make money. And also I was raised in a household that said, you know what, let's not dive into these masculine and feminine roles. Let's do what is best for the household financially. Wow. So that was a very, very different experience.
So he was really like a stay-at-home granddad.
Basically.
Were your grandparents, I mean, even both sides, are both families from the UK originally, or did they migrate to the UK?
Yeah, on both sides, they migrated. So on my dad's side, they migrated from Jamaica, and from my mum's side, they migrated from Barbados, which I think gives this story even more juice, because they're really coming from places where these set masculine and feminine roles are very, very obvious.
Yes.
But the thing is, I think migrating teaches anyone, you have to hustle, you have to put your head down, and you have to do what's best for your family. And because you've got less options, you know?
1,000%. And I wanted to get into that because I think I saw you online with a Bajan flag. And then when you said Brixton is so West Indian, I'm like, all right, it sounds like Flatbush and the gentrification.
Basically. And you know how I can say that with such strength? So all my nan's siblings migrated from Barbados to New York.
Yeah. So there you go.
Right. So I spent almost every summer in New York.
Oh, nice.
And Brixton was literally Flatbush until what's happened to Flatbush now has happened as well.
Yeah, we got Starbucks in Flatbush now.
Do you know what I mean?
Drive through Starbucks. It's really very different right now. So Brixton's probably the same thing, or whatever's popular there right now.
And the coffee's £7 a cup.
Oh, wow.
Come on.
Ridiculous. So so definitely having grandpa raise you, that's very different. So what was the dynamic with your mom and dad? And you, I mean, you kind of explained a
Oh.
little bit, but yeah.
It was really tense. I can't lie. Like they tried to see eye to eye and they didn't. But then on my mother's side, I'm the eldest of three. And
Okay.
on my father's side, he's dead now. I'm one of one. So I was my
Okay.
dad's only child, which again did something crazy to my head because in this man's world, I'm his everything. So
Mm.
I was able to like have siblings, but also go to my dad's house and have my own space and him be like, you're the best thing in the world, which
Nice.
was really important because once I grew up a little and starting to move in circles outside of Brixton, I realized how cold the world was towards Black women. I
Wow.
was like, oh, outside of my home, outside of my community, there's this thing called racism, there's this thing called colorism, then there's sexism. Like there's all these intersections where someone's going to try and block my bag or block my
Mm.
dreams. So it was really important to be able to go between these two Black men who were just like, no, you're the everything. You've got this. You
Nice.
know, those two men are really the best foundations I could have asked for. But yeah, mum and dad didn't really vibe. And that's still difficult to deal with. But it's also, as I've gotten older, I'm like, it's such a common story. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not
Yeah.
losing sleep over it, you know?
100%. But then I think the difference is in a lot of those situations, all right, mom and dad didn't work out. All right, mom's raising me now. And that wasn't the
Mm,
case for you.
no.
So
And don't get me wrong, I saw her and I loved her, but I saw her the least. Do you know what I
wow.
mean? Yeah, I
Wow.
saw like I'd see her maybe just as she was coming in from work and maybe sometimes in the morning, defo at weekends, but it was literally the men in my life I saw primarily.
I mean, I think that's important for Black men. We have to realize how much of an impact we make on the young girls
Mm,
in our life, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So translating to that, how was it, he's taking you around, like what were some of the lessons that he gave you that stuck to you to this day, even just going to school and having to progress in school and everything?
I tell you what, my granddad still is severely dyslexic. Like I sign all his paperwork, I
Oh,
deal with
wow.
all his letters. And I remember that man standing over me and being like, flash the pen, baby, flash the pen, as in make your handwriting distinct, make sure no one can take you for a fool, make sure you can read and write. Because he knew how not being able to read and write well invalidated him in some ways. And he
Mm,
was like, I've seen how that's been a blocker for me. And listen, that's not about to be your destiny. He had such an intimate relationship with my school teachers. I'll tell you this story one day. I must have been about 8. And I went to a school where you didn't have to wear school uniform, but my granddad still put me in one. It must be like, what? It
you had
must
to
be
hate
the,
that. You're the
like
only kid with a
the
uniform.
only kid in a uniform that he's just making up the Caribbean in him, yeah. So it's like some super dress up day. So I've like, and he's been like flat out, no, you're wearing uniform. So I snuck some clothes into my school bag,
Uh-oh.
and I think he's left, and so I've run off, gone to the toilet, changed my clothes. Had the day, da, 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 da. Last period of the day, I've gone back to the toilet, put on the uniform. He's picked me up. It's gravy. I'm like, yes, girl, you did it. Bath time comes now, and I just felt like a hailstorm of licks rained down upon me. Like I caught the whooping of a lifetime. And I'm so confused, like, what's going on? And he's like, don't you ever lie to me. Basically,
Wow.
my school teacher called him and was like, Mr. Brathwaite, this ain't Candice. And I don't
Wow.
know what's going on, but I have to let
Wow.
you know that I know you would never. And she was a stocky Ghanaian woman. Like
Mm.
she knew the tea as well. And he was like, don't you ever lie to me. Like I've built such a relationship at this
Mm.
school. I will always catch you. Honestly, that's the only time he's ever had to lay hands on me because it imprinted in my mind so much. And it made me understand like, okay, I learned this later. I was like, he only wants the best for you.
Yeah.
And that's where that strictness comes from. Now, to me today, do you know how beautiful it would be for Black kids to have that kind of relationship with their teachers and their parents? You couldn't pay for that now. That would save so much problems in our community universally if teachers were that invested in a child's life, that they're going to pick up the phone and be like,
to care that much.
Yeah, something's off. You can't buy that now, you know?
And I think there's cases where the teachers care that much and then the parents don't, which is crazy.
Right, exactly. Teachers are like invested, or they know when something's up, and parents can't. No, not his name's George, not Georgie boy. He was there every day in his tan Mac and his pipe, because he smokes a pipe, which is still a very regal thing, and his flat cap. And he'd be like just walking around, clocking the tea, being like, don't play with that person. Like, Granddad, why should I not play with this person? He was like, because they've got no home training.
Wow.
And that's such a harsh judgment to make, but it's true. He's clocked that their parents do not care about what they do. And he's like, what did he always used to tell me? Birds of a feather flock together, or what someone does will rub off on you. He's like, you may not even be the instigator, but if you're caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, it's over for you. Those are such fundamental lessons that,
Nice. Now, I mean, at that point, did you go on for higher learning to do anything that you're doing today?
No. And this is the thing, I like to be honest about this. I left school in the UK after college. So I did not go on to university to get any type of degree. I think my dad was brokenhearted because my dad was a solicitor. And by that time, I was working as a receptionist in the evenings after school. I was coming down.
When you say a solicitor, what do you mean?
A lawyer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like,
wow.
And an important one too. Like, he was a lawyer at one of the most prestigious human rights firms in the UK. Like, they deal with I remember I was about 17, and some people may know this name. I ended up meeting this guy called Abu Hamza. And this guy's got like a hook for a hand, and it was just a very trippy experience. Now I'm a lot older. I'm like, the situations that job put me in, I'm like, you had no idea what you were being exposed to. But then I turned to Dad and I was like, listen, my heart isn't in this legal thing. I'm just, I don't enjoy it. I don't like it. I was like, I always knew I wanted to be a writer.
Okay.
And I will say that he supported me in that I'd write these little, I want to say silly essays, but it all adds up to something. And I'd get him to mark them and correct them. I remember one night I watched a documentary. I don't know who sent me to watch this documentary about men in prison dealing with HIV. Such a random document. And I wrote like a 4-page essay because this thing really got stuck in my brain. And I sent it to Dad, and like a week went by and he hadn't said anything. I said, Dad, what was up with the essay? Like, you've not marked it. He said, let me tell you something. He said, that essay was so outstanding, I had no right to mark it. Like, as your dad, I didn't actually know I didn't know what to do with the information you were telling me. Wow. And he was like, if this is the way you write at 17, he was like, I have to support your dream in this writing thing. And again, I think just the compassion and the empathy and the support of a parent being like, I don't understand your dream, but I've got you, was a game changer.
Nice. And I mean, this is on the weekends, right? So when you're getting to see him, he's still pouring into you whenever he had you around.
Exactly. So then after that, I went traveling. I won this place on this thing that took me to India, of all places.
Okay.
For like 5 months. Again, that was an out of body experience as a Black woman traveling to a place like India.
What part of India?
So we flew into Delhi, but then we were situated way up north in a place called Himachal Pradesh, like near the mountains. Really small, ignorant minds in terms of their lack of education. They were like, how can you be Black and British? They were like, that's impossible.
They only had one picture ever shown to them.
They were like, you're from Africa and you should have no money, and how is your English so good?
Wow.
And when you're like 18, 19, you're having to learn on the spot that not every thought in your mind you should say. because you're not in a position of power. I'm like, if I really cuss these people now,
You're in the
I
middle of
don't
the
even
mountains.
understand what they're saying. Do you know?
You're not safe out there.
I'm like, I actually just have to deal with this in a different way. And then, so spent time in India, and then I went to all places, Italy. I became an au pair, and I stayed in Napoli in Italy. And that was an even more horrific experience, being a Black female in Italy. Like, their ideas about you, like, you have to be the cleaner, right? Again, how is your English so good? Just ignorance across the board. But it's an education that I wouldn't trade for the world. A lot of my friends stayed in the UK, went to uni, ended up with massive debt, but no life experience. Whereas I decided to take that leap and go outside my comfort zone, had no debt. And I know that at every corner of the world, a version of anti-Blackness exists. And if you really want to, do you know what I mean? And if you really want to explore this space, you need to know how to handle yourself.
I do have a question for you, because I know even in other countries, specific to India, I want to speak about, colorism even exists within themselves. And I want to talk about that, because I feel darker versus fairer skin, even in Indians, they view each other differently. So what was your experience seeing that, and even being darker than that, and how they treated you with that?
Honestly, do you know, some days I just wanted to cry, because it's not just the fact that colorism is obvious within their caste system. It's seeing adverts for bleaching cream everywhere. It's like this being pushed as the norm. Like, oh my God. Or like to hear that a daughter's been killed because she's too dark for the family to sell on in terms of marriage.
Are you serious?
Like, deadly. Deadly. Like, they're killing their own children because that daughter's skin tone has made her a burden.
Oh my gosh.
I think what was really helpful on that trip is there was a girl I became best friends with who was the same complexion as me. So we were able to make two eyes make four and be like, sis, I got you. I think had I have been the only one of that complexion on that trip, I would have come home early, just because it's a heavy weight to bear. Like, I understand colorism exists with even within the Black community, but people need to understand I was coming from a space where everyone was like, no, you're dope, you're great, it's fine, nice. We got you, we're going to support you. To then go out into the world,
gotcha, yeah,
and be like,
it wasn't that,
you know, like, wherever,
that wasn't enough to hold you in those places.
I was like, wherever I go in the world, I'm going to have to like shout to have my voice heard. I was like, cool. But then I also understood that this is where my other privileges came in. I was like, my daddy's one of the baddest solicitors in the UK. Do not chat mad to me. I know how this system, you know, there were other things I could pull on. There were other privileges. If I was coming from, say, like a working class situation, it maybe would have made it worse, because I don't think I would have had the knowledge or the education to communicate with them in a certain way.
Wow. Did you ever feel in danger in these countries?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, multiple times. I remember there was one time in India, to make the story even more layered, we were traveling with a Japanese girl. Now, Himachal Pradesh is close to a place called McLeod Ganj, which is Tibetan. We decided, being young and dumb, we're going to go for a weekend in McLeod Ganj, not understanding the violent history between, say, the Tibetans and the Chinese and the We get there and people want to off this girl's head. We are 19, 20 years old.
Wow.
And like,
just because of her ethnicity.
Right. People are all of a sudden, being Black is not the biggest issue. They're like, actually, you're cool.
You're safe.
But who's your friend? And like, it's knowing that, oh my God, we've got a few hours to get out of here, because they're literally letting us know they will take her head off. There were multiple moments of, also outside of being Black, there were moments of fear as a woman, because violence against women in India is just, it's unreal. And there were moments we were in a cab or in a bus as women, and we were like, we have to get out and walk the rest of the way.
Oh my gosh.
Because we know that this is a sexually violent and threatening situation.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. So after all of these expeditions, you go back to Brixton.
Well, do you know what? I was dragged back to Brixton because in the middle of my travels in Italy, Dad just drops dead. Yeah, he gets the flu on a Wednesday, and I speak to him and he's like, oh my gosh, I just don't feel very well. And then by Friday, he's dead. It was a
Wow.
very quick and sudden death. And so I'm now coming back home to try and put my life back together, like bury him, understand what it means to grieve without a sibling, which is a
Mm-hmm.
very, it's a hard experience because I'm like, no one else in this situation feels the way I do. Someone's lost a husband, someone's lost a son. No one else has lost a dad,
Dad.
and a
Yeah.
dad that was so influential in my life. I'm not gonna lie, it knocked the wind out of me. I think psychologically, 3-4 years,
Wow.
easy. It just
Wow.
took me that long to like work through understanding how quickly he died and why that happened, and who I was separate to him.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I'm now this Black woman without one of her main cheerleaders.
Yes. Yes.
How am I going to navigate life without this dude?
How do you feel like you ever fully recovered from that at this point?
No. And I will never fully recover. I think anyone who has lost a parent they were close to, you just learn to live with that gaping hole.
Mm.
Like it starts as this massive oozing wound that like you've got to rush to like an emotional hospital for. Because if you don't, you can bleed out. But of course, then it heals, but it just leaves this hole in your life where I now have a son named after him that he's never met my kids.
Mm-hmm.
He's never seen, he wasn't able to see me become the woman he knew I would be.
Yes. After reading those essays.
Exactly. Like, and I think that's just something you learn to live with. It's not nice,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
learn to live with it.
Now,
Yeah.
I do want to go back to mom because I know she was out, I guess, working, et cetera,
Mm,
everything else. Um, did you ever, I guess, forgive her for those moments where she wasn't necessarily there as a child?
definitely.
Okay.
It took a while, but I got there because I'm now at a place in my parenting journey where I'm like, you guys were only doing the best you could. And also now I'm like, I'll be 34 next week and I have
Oh,
two
nice.
kids. I'm like, raw, you guys were playing pretend. This is all this is you like sometimes my kids come to me and they're like, what we eating, what we doing? And I just put my head in my hands and I'm like, you guys really think I know best. Wow. Wow. You guys really think I know what I'm doing.
But your
Wow.
mommy, come on, mommy, like
You're right.
you know everything.
I'm
Your
like,
mommy.
you guys really think I've got a grip on this? Oh my God. And so now I'm able to look at her in her motherhood
Okay.
entirety, in her womanhood entirety, and be like, you were doing the best with what
I
you knew.
understand. I
And
understand.
and even though I was left hurt in some situations, I respect the hustle, I respect the grind, I respect the effort because this is not easy. Also, on a global level, I'm trying to have so much empathy for Black women as a
Yes.
whole
Yes.
because I don't think we've really started to deal with the burdens of slavery and
Mm.
colonialism and being flung from our mother countries and being dispersed and having to relearn what motherhood means and it's hard.
Mm.
It's hard. Do you know what? And I know I'm not on Twitter, but I know there's this discourse between, like, say, the Black British diaspora and African Americans. No, I'm speaking to us Black people as a whole.
Everywhere.
It's hard. We're still
Yeah.
unlearning so much of their violence and so much of the idea that we are nothing and this disconnection that when Black women move mad, now my first reaction is empathy
Yes.
because I'm like, we are still in a period of unlearning.
Mm-hmm. Which requires healing.
Exactly. And a healing that annoyingly, because of our socioeconomic standing in the world,
Mm-hmm.
many of us can't even afford to get. I hate this whole go to therapy, I don't know about you lot, therapy's hella expensive. Like,
Exactly.
I've got therapy tonight and I just be so mad at how much I'm paying this woman. It's good. It's helped me a lot. But I'm like, I don't know many Black women making this kind of money to be able to have someone listen to them for an hour, to be like, I think going to therapy is such a privilege laced statement. Like,
Yes, it is.
it's not accessible, you know?
And I want to ask, I think there are definitely some correlations to this question, but are you able to see a Black woman therapist, or is that not even an option for you in the UK?
Let me tell you, not only is my therapist a Black woman, she's dark skinned too. So
There you
some
go.
days I can just roll up and push up my face. I don't even have to speak. And she's like, girl, I know.
Say,
like,
say less.
She's like, I got you. You don't even have to speak. And it took a while. And I will say that my therapist is like, she's got a waiting list longer than my arm, because they're so few and far between. And like Black women are like, I only want to engage with someone who's going to get it. Like getting a slot in with her is like, it's insane because number one, that there are more, especially post-COVID, there are now more people requiring therapy than there are good Black therapists. Because also collecting your doctorate or your education to be a therapist, that's also a privilege in the UK.
Yes.
It's a privilege in the US to be able to have the money to be educated to that degree. So now there are more Black people with issues than there are Black therapists. You know, which is sad.
Yeah, no, 1,000%. But all right, so I want to take it. We're back in Brixton, right? Daddy passes, unfortunately, right? So you stay there. At this point, what do you decide to do for your own monies and funding?
Oh my gosh. So now I'm just hopping from job to job, not necessarily giving a damn. I'm being very reckless. I am living a life like a 1920s debauchery queen. Like I'm actually on a one-woman mission to maybe even kill myself is a strong word, but I know what I mean. Like I'm definitely trying to ruin myself of sorts because I am that grief-stricken. I'm like, nothing matters. Look, you can work hard and you can be a lovely guy and look how you die. Like I'm angry. I'm angry. And the only way to deal with that anger, I think, is to go out every night and not care and like just be so be such a destruction, reckless.
Yeah.
And then by some like luck of the draw, I meet this guy who ends up being my husband now.
Papa B.
Papa B comes into the scene. Okay. And so for some reason, Papa B can see beyond my recklessness and my pain and my grief. And like, I would fully be like, oh yeah, like we can hang out, we can sleep together, but I'm not your girlfriend, leave me alone, get out of my house. Like I'm so anti-love at this point because I'm like, listen, the last time I loved someone, they had to leave. I'm not in the business of doing that again. You can forget it. And he was so persistent and consistent. I remember one night he literally threw rocks at my window because I wouldn't come downstairs. Literally, he was like, no, you just need to hear me out. You need to understand that I'm going to wait for you to mentally get it together. Wow. That game changer, because what being in that relationship allowed, right. And being in that relationship allowed me to soften up in places where I wasn't allowing it to happen. Fast forward maybe 2 years. I think I had my daughter by that point. We had her pretty quickly in that relationship. And I decided,
were you guys married or did you have the daughter first?
Oh no. We're just boyfriend and girlfriend.
Okay.
But we're living together. And I decided I want to go back to work. And I see this competition, right? It's a competition for you to win a job working in publishing. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to apply, whatever.
And what were you doing as a job at this time?
Nothing. I was a stay-at-home mom, just looking after my kids.
Got it.
Yeah. So
what was Papa B doing?
Papa B was working in construction. He had always worked in sales in a construction company. And he's working long, torturous hours, you know. He's coming home just in time to see our daughter and bathe her and put her to bed and going back to work in the morning. But I'm starting to feel itchy. I'm like, you see this early motherhood thing? I don't like it. I feel brain dead. This child cannot communicate. I also feel like Papa B's holding down the entire household, but I want my own money. I don't want to have to be like, we're waiting on his check. I'm like, I want to go back out into the working world. I applied for this job. There's like 3,000 applicants, 4 job roles, and I end up winning one.
Nice.
So now I'm working in the marketing department at one of the biggest publishing houses in the world.
Yes.
And what that allows me to do is understand publishing from the inside out. I don't know if it's the same in the US, but publishing in the UK is notoriously white. It's notoriously privileged. It's based on nepotism. Like everyone has a daddy who's going to get them a job. Like the job role doesn't get advertised. You just have a daddy that's going to get you through the door. Everyone went to Oxford or Cambridge or Eton. Like working in publishing is proper upper class.
Wow.
And so in comes this mouthy Black girl from South London, sitting in meetings being like, that's rubbish. And everyone
from the flatbush of the UK.
Right. And everyone's looking at me like, why is this girl talking?
Yeah.
I'm like, because your marketing is played out. It's trash. And as a book reader, this ain't hitting. Let's spice up your life. And they end up listening to me, which is astounding. And I end up developing a really good relationship. But what happened during that time, and this is why I always want to encourage people to roll the dice on themselves. This was 2015. And the word that kept popping up was blogger. Everyone's a blogger. It's a thing. Yeah. And I'm spending most of my working day on the phone to these bloggers being like, how much are you guys going to charge us to promote this book? Now, listen, when they told me the price, I said, I'm in the wrong job. I said,
I need to be blogging.
I said, I'm a fool because like, what? So I'm not going to lie. I was making little notes. And what I was also noticing is that in the UK, there were no Black bloggers. Wow. Not one, not zero. I said, okay, baby. I was speaking to myself. I said, there's a gap in the market, sis.
But blogging feels so independent. So what I'm going to ask right there, and it's going to tie into just even you as an author, but at that point in time, what do you feel stopped Black women in the UK from saying, let me independently do this for myself and take on this market?
Money. Because like on some level, starting out as a blogger, especially back then, required some kind of money for a camera, for a website. So money, time. You got to remember Black women across the world are making less money than their white counterparts. Do you know what I mean? So where a white woman I'm sitting next to at work
white
is
and
getting
male.
White and they're making
and
twice what
Black
I'm
males
making.
are making more than Black women.
Right.
Too. Yeah.
So it's not having the time, it's not having the money. Also, I'm a great believer, if you can't see it, you can't be it. There is like, even in 2022 now, there is still a nervousness amongst Black Britons to do something new because it's like, it's never been done before in the UK. Wow. It's never. Wow. This is why we constantly have to look towards the US to be like, that's an example of the Black greatness we can achieve.
That's crazy.
Black Britain will not allow Black British people to thrive. Like, I mean, Britain as a whole, they're like, no, we want to keep you in this place. So to me, that's why I thought I wasn't seeing any. Little do they know, Candice is crazy. I'm absolutely crazy. And this idea wouldn't leave my head. No, I'm insane. When I checked and I came home to Papa B and I was like, I'm going to quit my job. He was like, what? You've been there 1 year, girl. You're so, and he's like, you having that job has now brought our head above the poverty line. Like we were mad struggling when it was just one check.
Okay,
we can kind of go out for a dinner a month. Now it's two. Like, what you leaving to do what? And he's proper Nigerian. He's like, you're leaving to become a YouTuber? Like, please get out my face. Get out my face.
What's funny is I think every Nigerian guest I've had on the show has had similar conversations about their parents, right? and them looking into being an entrepreneur. Their parents are like, what?
Like, he's like, sit down.
So you're like, no, I'm buying a camera.
So this is the thing. I take my last wage, I buy a secondhand camera and I quit my job. Because I know me, I'm either all in or I'm all out. And I couldn't play the game of having this 9 to 5 and still raising this little girl and doing this thing on the side. I was like, I have to build this platform 24/7 because me, I love the data. I was showing him like these girls. I was like, there is no one that looks like me, babe. Like it's now or never. Like I have to do this, and I'm not gonna lie.
First to market.
Right.
It's the run to the market.
I'm not going to lie, it caused tension in our relationship for years because what many influencers or entrepreneurs, well, they do say it now, but I think people don't listen, is that no one ain't trying to hear you or pay you for years. For years. Like, they don't care. You don't have the numbers. You've not built the brand. They don't know your name. It's literally like cold calling, knocking on someone's door. That's how no one cares. And I promise you, it took 3 years for me to land a paid job after I quit my job.
So
3
that's
years.
A long time. Now,
that's a hell of a long time.
What was your first attempt? Like, what was when you sat down and said, I'm going to do this, blogging, vlogging, what was the first set of stuff?
I think my first set of stuff was like talking about TV shows on YouTube, which was good. It was getting a little traction. And then I turned towards motherhood because I was like, actually, I'm at home with this kid all day. I'm doing all of this stuff. And what I noticed about the British mummy scene, it was popping. And them girls were getting sponsorships out their ears. Wow. I was like, I want me a piece of that. And the second I pivoted towards motherhood, that's when it all popped off.
Just instantaneous. People.
Literally, it was like Black Britain were thirsty for this kind of content because Black British mothers hadn't been able to see themselves on Instagram, online, or see their stories being told. And I'm not going to lie, what gave my situation the edge was that I was in a happy relationship.
Yes.
It wasn't the continuous narrative of a broken Black family or single mom struggling, which was all, it's like, at that time, it was all Black women were allowed to be if you were a mom. Like, oh, yeah, the baby daddy left and she's on benefits and it's really hard. And it's like, my God, here's this Black woman with this Black man. And like, they're having, like, it just, down. Right. It blew up because it just keyed into not only a gap in the market, but aspiration. And I think with any brand or business, once you can like identify your space of aspiration, that's when the till's gonna ring. Because let's be honest, we only buy into certain brands because we aspire to be like what it says it's gonna be in the advert. Right. And it's exactly the same with being an online personality, so to speak.
Wow. Now, I mean, you definitely translated that. And I'm going to say those essays, right? The essays that Daddy used to read and everything, you translated that to become a full-on author. And the thing that bugs me out is that I've heard it said that you were the first Black woman in the UK to publish a book about Black motherhood.
I swear to you, like even hearing you say it back gives me chills. And you can go...
It's insane.
You can go online to the British Library today and it's still the only book about Black British motherhood.
So no one else said, all right, she's doing it. Let me write my book.
No. And the thing is, I think other people are trying to do it, but publishers are still acting scared. And it goes to show how hard Black people still have to work. Crazy. Because that book came out, was an instant Sunday Times bestseller. That book is still selling mad crazy numbers today.
Yes.
There is no way in hell there are not other Black women who are like, I want to piggyback off this. And I want them to piggyback. But my true belief is that the publishing industry still ain't trying to hear them. I think the publishing industry are saying, yeah, but we've got one of those. We don't need.
We only need one, Candice.
We only need one. And do you know what annoys me about that? Because I think people would be like, oh, don't you feel special? No, I feel aggravated.
Wow.
Because it's like, why have I done all of this work to get to the top of this mountain for you to not let my girls in? Yeah, it's like going to the club with your friends and the doorman being like, only you.
You only.
That's no fun.
Yeah.
I don't know who else is in that club.
Yeah.
That's no fun. And I just feel like there's still that blocker. Whereas white authors, there's 50,000 books the same. Like, and especially in the blogging space or the like influencer space. And I don't have my mouth to say these girlies can't even write, bro. They're such.
But they're out there. They're published. They're there.
They're such terrible writers, but the publishing houses will come and give them a ghostwriter and be yeah. And they'll just slap their name on it because they know the book's going to sell because of the platform they have.
See, that's a very hip hop thing. I didn't know they did it.
Oh my God. In the publishing industry, ghosties are rife. Like, and you can tell because these white women have never said they want to write. Even from their Instagram captions, they can't string a sentence together.
Wow.
And yet they're out here being Sunday Times bestsellers. And I'm like, it's still not fair, because I'm telling you that Black girl you're not giving a deal to can actually write. Like,
now, I'm going to ask you a crazy question. You know, to compare it to the club line, the VIP line, and you get in, and your friends aren't there to party with you. Do you ever want to leave the space because of that?
All the time. All the time. And annoyingly, my friends outside the club are now the ones keeping me in.
They're like, don't come back out. Just stay in.
They're
We'll
like,
be all right.
Don't come back out. What we will do is through the window, we'll pass you tools so you can build an underground tunnel though. So that they're like, you need to understand, for some reason, you've been the one that's been allowed to infiltrate. You can't leave, because now you know the secrets, now you know the tea, now you know the information, and you can send us notes through the window and let us know how we need to move. And so I appreciate that I'm kind of just like the mule of this energy, and that in some ways being inside now means that 20 more of us can get in 2 years' time, you know?
How do you feel with that burden? How much is that weighing on you right now?
I hate it. And I can say that I say that with such vim, because I had this conversation today. Like, living this life isn't easy. Living such a public life, especially in the UK where you are one of one, it's not easy. And I'm like, some days, I'm not gonna lie, I want to take this crown off. I'm like, God, like, I just want to be normal. Like, let me go, bro. And like, I fully hear God be like, sometimes, I'm sorry, this is the flow. Wow. And there are going to be some bumps in the road, but what will make it easier is if you just relax and accept that this is what I've chosen you to do.
Wow. And
I don't want to hear your whining and crying, because we don't get to change the story. I think people from the outside, they see the parties or they see the outfits and they're like, no, you must be having... What you don't see is the racist trolling online. What you don't see is how I always feel like my safety's threatened, because I'm out with my kids and people come up and say hi to my kids and not me. Well, you know, my kids, do you know, dead.
Wow.
Dead. And I'm just like, that's the stuff that I don't talk about, because people will, I know the general population will be like, oh my gosh, you know, you're complaining. But some days, especially not just being a Black woman, but being a Black person, period, the bar is so high for us, you know? I can't just go out and start cussing, even if someone's done something. Do you know what I mean?
Candice.
What?
Sunday Times bestseller. Just wilding.
I don't have that space.
Don't let the camera phones catch you.
Before I got my driver's license, I always used to like want to run in my whip and go and get my kids. And my husband would be like, if they catch you, bro, that's a front page story.
Oh, wow.
Black woman on our TV driving without a license. He was like, they're going to make you out to be the biggest demon. Like, you won't have killed no one. You would have parked perfect. But it's because you've broken some side of the law. They're going to run with that narrative. So what people don't understand, like, before I leave my house, I feel like I'm having to put this cape of perfection on, where I'm like, don't screw up your face. Don't shout. Don't be too loud, because they are waiting for you to give them a reason for them to pull it all away.
Now, at this point, do you feel obligated to sharing certain things with the public, like even your children? And I'll preface it by saying that I'm very private online myself. Like, you won't see pictures of my kids on Instagram. You might, you know, if you're a close friend on my Facebook or something like that, that's a little different. But Instagram, like, my kids are not even on it. So do you feel obligated at this point because you shared so much with the public to this point?
No. I feel like the boundaries are really clear now, and I feel like they understand you get what I give. Prior to being at this point in my career, it got a bit fuzzy, and I felt like I owed the public everything, like every nook and cranny, every piece. And one day I just sat down. No, let me not tell a lie. I got trolled really badly by a very famous blogger in our space. And it became a national news story because...
Are you serious?
Because she was going online pretending to be someone else, and she was racially trolling me, and she got uncovered.
Wow.
And this became...
She had a burner account.
Literally. She was even trolling her own husband. I swear to you. And that was the tipping point for me, because all of a sudden my babysitter's ringing me like, wow, you're in the newspaper. What's going
Oh
on?
my gosh.
And I was like, no. This is a level of privacy that's been violated.
Yeah.
I didn't ask for this. I didn't sign up for this. Now my kids' pictures are just being printed in the newspaper because it's a news story.
Wow.
That for me was the hard fork in the road.
Wow.
I was like, the gates go
No.
up because
Wow.
you guys are crazy. And the thing is, I don't think, I can say this, the way Black people respect their privacy is very different to white people.
Mm-hmm.
And rightfully so, because the last time we were kind to them, look what happened. And so now, like, we are rightfully very guarded, you know.
Yes.
Sometimes I'd be following a white woman online, and I never call people out, but she posted a picture of her naked child, like potty training. I hollered at her one time. I was like, sis, I don't normally do this, but do you understand the safety issue right now? Yeah. I don't care if you've even got 3 people following you. This is a safety issue for you and your child. And she took the picture down, but I was just like, and a Black person would never do that. we would never, ever do that, because we just understand what being so open and so vulnerable can cost you on the other side. And so now my audience are really respectful of my privacy. Also, that situation taught me, a friend's mum once told me, silence can never be misquoted. And it's honestly, I've got that on my office as a painting, because whenever there's a little story or a little friction in the business, I tell everyone, shut up. Just shut your mouth. Because again, as a Black person, you can say and they're going to say you said boo. So sometimes the best thing to do is give them no chat at all. You just be quiet and you let the dust settle. I think sometimes as a Black creator, going online to defend yourself causes more trouble than there was in the first place. My friends love to screenshot me and show me when I'm trending on Twitter. They love to do that. I'm like, you guys are crazy. I don't care about that.
These are your friends.
Do you know why they send it? Because they're like, you have no idea the impact you're having on Black people in the UK. I'm like, I do not care.
Now, to contrast things, how do you feel about the Black women that are like online becoming famous twerking?
Oh, baby. Do you know what? I said that this year specifically is the year of no judgment towards what Black women do, just because we are the most judged and hated person on earth.
Yes.
Like when we look at that pyramid of hate, they're coming for Black women all the time. Now, I also have to remember, I used to love to wear the shortest shorts in my 20s and twerk it up at the club. And so now I'm a little bit older and I'm a mum and I like to act all prim and proper. And I'll be looking at someone twerking. I'll be like, oh, that's so terrible. My husband will be like, how did I meet you?
Exactly.
Please gather yourself. Like
Papa B was like, I like that twerking. I held it down.
Papa B was like, sorry, honey. Like, and honestly, it reminds me that we are living, I'm just a little bit older now. And I think, you know what my biggest grace was? Not having the internet at that time.
Yes. Yeah.
If we were
the video
all online,
clips.
there was just no proof of the madness. There's no video. And so what I would like, I'm like, girl, I love that for you if you love it, but could you do that in private? Because these clips live forever. Like these situations live forever. And I just don't think when you're in your 20s, you don't care about that. You're like, yeah, put it on the gram. And it's like, no, sometimes now these videos are getting you cancelled, or it means you can't get a certain job. And I wish that people understood that. Like,
now, I do want to go right into the books at this point. Now, the first one that came out, right? It's part of the trilogy, I Am Not Your Baby Mother.
Yeah.
That name itself, that's going to get people interested. But what was the full focus of that release? And
well, the full focus was really me writing about the Black British motherhood experience from my perspective. Now the title, because we all know the negative connotations around baby mama, baby mother, that was me just calling my publisher's bluff, because I was like, listen, 5 of you white ladies say you want this story, but I need to test you guys. Wow. I need to make sure that you are not going to dilute my story.
Wow. So here's the title.
Literally. So I said my way of testing them, I was like, because what people don't know about publishing is that an author doesn't have the last say on their title. So few people know that an author doesn't have last say on the title or the front cover. The publishing house gets to make that last decision. And I said, you know what, this surprises people. I'm a massive Jay-Z fan.
We can hang out all day, like go bar for bar.
When I say, like, I study that man's interviews and he has taught me so much about what's for sale and what's not for sale. I said, listen, this is really my intellectual property. And if you want it that bad, we can't change the title. And they came back to me within 5 minutes and they were like, we will sign the contract on the title. I said, that's power, because that means that I can trust you in the acknowledgement that you understand you don't know anything about a Black woman's experience. So when it comes down to editing this story, you're going to let me have final say. And so that's how that came to pass. Now, no one would have planned for this to happen. This is like a PR's dream, but it's the most horrible thing. I'm Not Your Baby Mother came out 2 days after George Floyd was murdered.
Yeah, wow.
So that kind of marketing timing, what happened in the UK was that I'm Not Your Baby Mother ended up being on the list of essential racial reading. Like,
and I think everyone was trying to break the bias, right?
Right.
So it's like, here's a read.
Wow. So this ends up being on the list with books like Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, or Me and White Supremacy with Layla Saad. Here's me with my little bottle of champagne, and we're in a lockdown. Don't forget, we're locked down. I'm like, nah. I said the book is 3 days old, guys. Bring it back. Bring it. Wow. How are you gonna?
It's on to the races.
How are you gonna put my baby book in like this esteemed list? Like, that made me so nervous, but also I was like, there was this energy over me. I don't know if it was Dad. I don't know if it was God that was just like, it's done. Again, like I said,
don't block your blessings.
Right. This is the way the story pans out. So just buckle in. And for that book to do what it did, like I said, I wasn't even able to go out and promote because we were in a lockdown.
Yeah. And but so, it was promoting itself at that point.
Literally, it just took off. And again, and my publishers were like, oh my God, we're so shocked it's doing so well. I said, listen, irrespective of the murder of George Floyd, I'm not. Because again, there was that gap in the market. Like, stop acting like Black people don't want to read about themselves. Like, you don't need to get hip to the tea. And again, that book has just gone on to do. It's even now in the UK, if you want to become a midwife in our National Health Service, you have to read I'm Not Your Baby Mother to pass your exam.
Are you serious?
I swear to you, they've put it on the list of like, you have to read it in order to get your midwifery badge in the UK.
That's amazing.
Like, that's
you had no plans of that.
None of that.
I think it tells you how even universal the story was. And what's interesting to me is that you have also a fan base of white women. White women love this book as well. So it's not just for us. The story was written away, right?
This is the thing. And what I always tell white people or any of my readers is like, of course, I'm thinking of Black women when I write. But in order for the biases to be broken, I need white people to read it.
Yes, and we share that information.
Right. Black people, we know the tea. We know how we're abused or not listened to. We know that. I need white people to read it. So they can go to their white friends and be like, oh my God, like this is still a real thing. Like, how can we make that happen? Also, and this is something that, especially in Britain, and I don't want to get cancelled, but I have to tell the truth. We don't yet have the Black financial infrastructure for our audiences to be solely Black. We're not there yet. Not there yet. I feel like in the US, you can fully say with your chest, like, my stuff is for Black people and that's the market I'm trying to approach. And you can do really, really well. The reality is Black people in the UK as a whole only make up 3% of the population.
Oh, that's it?
That is it.
Wow.
And so it's like, you're going to be a fool to your bank balance and your accountant if you solely position yourself as only for Black people. Your resources and your audience are going to be really limited. And this has caused friction along the way, because there are many Black people who don't pet to tell me, oh, you're a coconut, you're a bounty, like the white people love you too much. I'm like, listen, sir, I came here for not a long time, but a good time.
Yes.
And in some ways, it's reparations. Like, I got to get back the coins some way. And so I'm extremely happy to have a lot of white women follow me, not just from a sense of they are going to buy into the things that I think are help going to educate them, but it's just because of based on where I live. Like, I couldn't solely market to a Black audience. I'd have nothing to sell.
Now, I heard through a little birdie that you're looking at even potentially coming over to New York. Like, what's going on with that part?
Do you know what? I was really sad last year because, like I said, if you want to move in a certain way or build certain businesses in the UK as a Black woman, the glass ceiling is right there. And I feel like I've arrived at the ceiling.
Yes.
I feel like, because, you know, there's this running joke. I don't know if you guys know her over there. She lives there now. There's a comedian, Gina Asheray. She is from the UK. She now lives in LA. And she once told a story where she was like, I was living in the UK and I wanted to be a popping comedian. And a white man turned to me and said, well, you have to wait for Lenny Henry to die. And Lenny Henry is our most esteemed Black comedian. And she weren't telling no lies. The vibe in the UK is one at a time.
That's crazy.
One Black person at a time. Like,
it's a threat. If there's two, it's a threat.
What? They're like, no. One Blackie at a time. Now, you know, you've got to wait for our chosen Black person to die before we allow you to arrive. And I'm looking at the clock. I'm looking at the span of my life. And I'm like, do I really want to dedicate myself to a country that isn't going to allow me to flourish in the way that I want to? And I look, and this, guys, to any African Americans listening, I know it's not games over there. I understand the hardships. Like, I'm not trying to move with like rose tinted spectacles. I'm just saying, when I look towards the way you guys are allowed to flourish and work, it makes sense for me to start putting down roots over there. Like, because the reality is, the UK as a Black woman is only going to allow me to go so far. And I don't want to end up in a situation where it's my time to pass on and I feel like I haven't squeezed the juice out of my life because I've allowed myself to stay in a stagnant situation. You know, I'm respectful to my British audience. I love them. I couldn't do this job without them. But even they look at me now and you know, people message me all the time and they're like, Candice, why don't you have a TV show yet? Why are you not on the front cover of this magazine? And that kind of burns because I'm like, sis, I'm trying.
There's a block somewhere.
There's a block here, babe. There is like, there are many, maybe white men holding this door being like, no, we have our chosen Black girl right now. We can't allow you to enter.
Wow. I mean, it's kind of interesting because I hear all of this, and are there people from other countries that even say, hey, let me invest into what's going on over here? Or are they blocked from even investing into someone like a Candice Brathwaite?
I think, I don't even think they would want to invest into me in this space because like, it's so, our media space here is so toxic and it's so filled with jealousy and backbiting because the way the UK has Black British people moving, it's like, oh no, you can't all sit at this table, bro. There's not enough food to go round. So what happens is we all end up at a party together and everyone's feeding away because you know across the room is someone that could take your job in the morning. That's how they want you to think, you know. Now I move in a mindset of abundance now. A couple of years ago, if someone got a job I wanted, I'd be crying for days. I'd be like, my life is over. There's no way through. And now I'm like, nah, God's got me. What's for me will reach me. There is more than enough. But not everyone in my workspace here thinks like that. And what that does, it creates infighting. And what makes me even sad is that's how the white infrastructure wants it. That's how they've always wanted it. They want us to believe that, oh no, you can't all get through this. And also, I think Black Britain is a little bit behind in coming together to build. And that's something that African Americans have a great head start on. You guys will look across the table and be like, I'll do a deal with you.
Yeah,
let's build this thing. Let's build Rockefeller. You got the UK. We're just starting to do that. And like I said, I'm 34 in a few days. I can't be waiting.
You're trying to move faster. Now, I know you came out with part 2 of the trilogy, right? Sister, and I understood that was supposed to be probably chronologically number 1 in the order. I don't want to gloss over that at all, but I want to understand, because now you have part 3 of the trilogy cuts both ways. You've announced the title. People were waiting to see what it was going to be. Yeah. What is this book about?
This book now, we're twisting it up a bit. This book is now a young adult love story. And the characters are young and they're Black. And we're following Cynthia. Cynthia's brother was recently murdered. And her parents have moved her from Brixton to the countryside. And it's a story I've been able to create because we had to do that move. When I fell pregnant with my son, I don't know if, American listeners might not know this. The UK has a very bad stabbing issue. No. Kids over here are stabbing each other to death like crazy.
Like what age? Like they're just...
So I think the youngest victim we've had is 11. I promise you. The turf wars and drug rings, and they're called postcode wars. So every area has their own gang, has exploded. And so where I fell pregnant and we were still living in London, which is like the stabbing hotspot, I turned to Papa B and I was like, I cannot raise my son in a place where getting him to 16 is a roll of the dice.
That's crazy. I mean, we got gun violence in the US, but honestly, they say gun violence is lower other places, so I guess people resorted to knives.
Honestly, knife crime in the UK is out. It's got to the point where it doesn't even come on the news anymore. You have to sign up to certain bulletins because the kids are being murdered at such a quick rate that the turnover story is like every 5 hours. There's such bloodshed. And so we left Brixton and we've moved to a greener part of the UK. And I wanted to be able to write that story in a fictional way because that's the choice that a lot of Black Britons are having to make right now. We're having to leave the places where our grandparents came. They came off this boat, they came off this plane, and they've settled in London, West London, South London. And now this violence is meaning that Black people are having to go out. And like I said, now, hear this. I think we make up 3% of the UK, right? Mm-hmm. But in London, Black people make up, I think, 40%. Ooh, so just do the maths on that. London is where we all went.
Concentrated.
And so now for us to go out, we're facing racism. Wow. We're going to these countrysides and these white people are like,
here.
What the hell are you doing? Right.
Until we want to go. And we'll gentrify. Right. Then you could go. You could leave. We're going back.
Exactly. And so I wanted to do that in a way that would hook the younger reader. And so that's book 3. And I can't believe we went from Dad not marking an essay to book 3.
That's it. I know Daddy's smiling down on you right now.
Amen.
And that's the big thing. I think we're definitely going to have you back on the show. And it might be when you're in New York. I'd look forward to that. My wife already is telling me, my wife loves you, by the way. And my wife's Jamaican. I didn't even know that you would have Jamaican. But she's already put the word out there, like, move to Long Island. Like Long Island, New York, just come on out. She's waiting for you to be out there.
Honestly, it's definitely something that's going to happen. I just have to take it in small increments. Because listen, when I went to New York and I started speaking to you that really lived there, child, that health insurance, girl, I said, one friend told me. How much is that
a month?
Honestly, he said he broke his arm and it cost him like $20,000. I said,
that's just an arm. Don't break a leg.
Oh God, I gotta get my money up.
People need to go and buy cuts both ways. That's what's gonna happen.
Literally, please get my coins up because I'm trying to move.
If you want Candice in New York, Get the whole trilogy.
And you know what? I just have so much respect for you guys in the hustle. And of course, if you're born there, you know nothing else.
Yes.
So you don't really deep it. But I'm leaving a country that, and the health service can be booky, but it's there, you know? I know if anything's gone wrong, I can just hop there. And so to move to New York would be me understanding that I'd have to let go of a lot of privileges, but I do think it'll be worth the trade-off.
The last thing I want to ask you, make motherhood diverse. Right?
Yeah.
Where does that fall in line for you with everything you're doing? Yeah. And then the last thing I'll ask is, how do you balance just having time for yourself when you have all of these different things going on, and with the kids and the husband and the podcast?
So Make Motherhood Diverse was an online platform that grew to show different versions of motherhood in the UK. Where Make Motherhood Diverse is at, and it's such a day for you to ask this question because we're trying to sign a deal now, is that's become like an agency of sorts. Huge parenting brands come to me and the person I'm running it with, and they're like, you have this great pool of parents that we want to cast or pull from. How much is that going to cost? So essentially what Make Motherhood Diverse now allows me to do is to get mums paid, which was always the goal. Do you know what I mean? I'm all about, it's all like women supporting women, and that stuff is all true. The best way you can support a woman is give her financial freedom, give her a way. Do you know what I mean? Don't give her the fish, teach her to fish so that she can leave a bad situation or she can move around. So Make Motherhood Diverse is now an agency, and that is amazing to see. And how do I do it all? I don't. And so to any woman listening, let's get this clear. I think the only reason I can live such a creative life is because I got a housekeeper, because my husband quit his job to join our business. You know, there were things that had to happen in order for me to shine in the way that I do. And I think a lot of Black women, they need to get better at asking for help and taking help.
Yes.
And also seeking, you know, you didn't ask me this, but I'm just going to mention this anyway, because I see a lot of this on TikTok. I see young Black girls being like, I want a 6-figure guy, and he's got to get me a Birkin and fly me out and da-da-da-da-da.
Yep.
And now I'm older, I'm like, honey, no, you want the man that's going to support you in you becoming a 6-figure girl.
Yes.
And let me tell you, I've been with Papa B 10 years. Let me tell you, you don't meet that man at the point of 6 figures, because if you do, you are replaceable to him. You are interchangeable to him. Yes. He now has all of this wealth and this access, and you fit in there like a new pair of trainers. I think it's important that younger Black women start to look for men who are willing to work with them and support them from nothing. And I think then you can grow a relationship where things get tough, someone's going to slip into a different role, or that man's not going to like hold anything over your head, you know?
It sounds like right now you guys have built a brand that's bigger than anything you guys did before because of that belief and that support system within each other.
Can you believe Papa B got a book deal? Can you?
I heard Papa B has the book dropping. I heard he does. So he's on the podcast with you, but he's dropping his own book now. He's dropping books.
And now he always turns to me and he laughs because, of course, now we're cool. He's like, baby, quitting that job is the best thing you ever did. I'm like,
oh, wow. Yeah. It might have taken 3 years to get that check, but now them checks are studying. Look at you dropping a book, too. Shout out to Papa B. Well, I'm telling you, we're going to do part 2 when you and Papa B are in New York. Let's set it up. It's a different dynamic. I'd love to have both of you on. You already got Angie by yourself, but just listen to the Pillow Talk podcast. I know there's a lot of things, and we could go on and on about that, about people calling you guys couple goals and you know what that means to them. Yeah.
So let's do that. We're
going to do that. So, but Candice, I definitely want to thank you for your time today from your different time zone. And just lastly, where can everyone find you that's been under a rock that hasn't heard of you before?
Do you know what? I'm just Candice Brathwaite on every platform. I think if you're down for the real talk, follow me on TikTok. I have to keep it a bit more professional on Insta.
There we go. But no, Candice, thank you again very much. It's Blue Dope.